Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Have you ever witnessed anything like this before? It's highly unlikely, seems straight out of an adventure movie, but it's real. The Ethiopian Bible is one of the most enigmatic and debated books in history. Even the country itself is shrouded in inexplicable mysteries. But that's a narrative for another occasion. Ethiopia is the cradle of one of the world's oldest civilizations and is the only African country that escaped colonization, allowing them to trace their lineage back to ancient times. They are even associated with the descendants of Ham, one of Noah's sons. Although there are controversies, historical records strongly suggest this connection. However, the focus is not only on the country itself, but on the treasure it guards, the ancient scrolls of the Bible found in Ethiopia. They are older than the most well-known versions, like the King James Bible, with its 88 books. The Ethiopian Bible includes works that other Christian traditions do not recognize, containing both Old Testament and New Testament texts, as well as unpublished scrolls. What makes this even more fascinating is that these scrolls have existed long before Christianity was officially established in the region. While Christianity spread throughout the world, it was already rooted in Ethiopia since the 4th century. Travelers and ancient historians witnessed the presence of Christianity in Ethiopia since ancient times. Evidence suggests that for over 3,500 years, certain Ethiopian tribes worshipped the Christian God. For centuries, Ethiopia has welcomed Christian refugees, offering them a safe home in times of religious persecution elsewhere in the world. This is just a glimpse of the rich and complex religious history of this unique country. The world's oldest organized Christian body is not the Catholic ministry as many might think, but rather the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, locally known as Tewahedo. Additionally, Ethiopia houses one of the earliest illustrated Christian books ever found, part of the Gospels written in Ge'ez, an ancient Ethiopian language. In 2010, it was discovered in a monastery atop a mountain in Ethiopia. According to tradition dating back to the 10th century BC, an Ethiopian ruler and the famous biblical Queen of Sheba traveled to Jerusalem to seek counsel from King Solomon, as recorded in the accepted canon of the Bible. However, the biblical account does not mention that the two rulers had a son named Menelik. Queen Sheba is said to have taken the boy back to Ethiopia, where he became the first emperor. In 2012, genetic analyses conducted on Ethiopians found evidence suggesting a connection with possible mixtures with Egyptian, Israelite or Syrian peoples about 3,000 years ago. This coincides with the period when the queen is said to have ruled the kingdom of Sheba, further strengthening the story. Despite its rich history and authenticity, the Ethiopian Bible is not recognized as part of the canon of sacred books and is generally unknown to most people, including many followers of the same faith. This highlights the effort to discredit and conceal the Ethiopian Bible over time. Today, we understand that the Bible was not as we know it now. There were various versions and interpretations, reflecting different understandings and ideas about its content. Initially written in Hebrew, biblical texts were translated into various languages over the centuries. One of the earliest significant translations was made by Saint Jerome, who converted the Hebrew text into Latin, resulting in the Vulgate around the year 400. The Vulgate, with its 27 books of the New Testament and 39 of the Old Testament, became the primary Latin version of the Bible. However, in the 1st century, many other writings about the life and teachings of Jesus emerged. Many of these writings were fictional, similar to novels or fanfics based on the life of Jesus. The problem arose when these texts were made available to the public, leading some people to believe they were real accounts. Without the digital verification resources we have today, fake news spread quickly, resulting in a plethora of false books and confusion among people. The damage caused by this dissemination of inaccurate information was significant. This concern became central to the leaders of the early Christian Church, who convened at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD and the First Council of Constantinople in 381 AD to determine which books would be included in the New Testament. They established rigorous criteria. A book would be considered sacred if it was written by one of Jesus' followers or by someone who witnessed his teachings. Additionally, the text should have been written in the 1st century and be in harmony with the rest of the Bible. Throughout the centuries, the Holy Bible underwent several modifications, with one of the most significant during the reign of King James I. Even after 500 years of the Vulgate, there were still multiple versions and conflicting interpretations of the Bible, a concern for the monarch who aimed for a unified version to resolve religious divergences and consolidate his power. To address such concerns, King James III commissioned 47 experts to review all existing distinct translations, dividing them into 6 groups. Working independently for 7 years and following rigorous rules to avoid bias, these experts used various tools to produce a translation faithful to the original languages. The result was a scholarly Bible that reflected the consensus of the experts and was in accordance with the established criteria. Despite the geographical separation, they celebrated the approval by attributing glory to God for guiding them to the same conclusion. In 1611, the King James Bible was published, and thanks to advances in printing, became one of the most accessible versions up to that point. However, the additions made in the King James Bible and the original translation of the Vulgate by St. Jerome resulted in the exclusion of some books that most Christians possess today. On the other hand, the Ethiopian Bible maintains all scriptures. Having briefly explored the history of the Bible, it is the opportune moment to discuss why the Ethiopian Bible was rejected. There are several reasons for this, but the main one is the inclusion of additional books known as pseudo-epigrapha. These are texts falsely attributed to authors who are not their true writers, or whose authors were identified as figures from the past, akin to works of fan fiction. Such texts are considered non-canonical by most Christian traditions. The books that were removed or rejected were known by scribes and theologians of the time as not being divinely inspired. Many of these works were written with ill intentions before and after Jesus, aiming to prevent the spread of falsehoods in the future. Therefore, these books were excluded from the canon. For example, if someone today were to write a book denying Muhammad Ali's abilities as an athlete, it would be rejected due to its falsehood. However, over time, these stories may become part of popular belief, hence the importance of eradicating them. Now, the Ethiopian Bible has 2 canons, the broad and the narrow. Before we explore this, it is important to define what a canon is. A canon is a generally accepted principle or criterion by which something is judged. For example, it is canon that a cell phone has a screen, a country has a president, and a channel has more subscribers. In a religious context, a canon refers to the collection of texts considered authoritative or sacred by a religious community. The Ethiopian Bible has 2 distinct canons, the broader and the narrower. The broader canon, widely recognized, consists of 81 books, including works such as Enoch, Jubilees, the 3 books of Mabes, the Epistle to Clement, the 4 books of Codes, among others. This is the main focus of the video, as it is the most well-known canon. On the other hand, the narrower canon was established by Emperor Haile Selassie, who proclaimed this version as the official and complete Ethiopian Bible. Although I cannot provide details on the reason behind this decision, I suggest you research it on your own to better understand. This restricted version of the canon contains only 72 books, excluding some scriptures found in the broader version. It is important to note that the broader canon has not been reprinted since the early 20th century. The existence of 2 different versions of the canon contributes to controversy and may have been a factor in the widespread non-acceptance of the Ethiopian Bible. The Bible, contrary to popular belief, is not just one book, but rather a collection of texts and experiences written over many years. This diversity is where challenges and questions arise regarding its interpretation and acceptance. Different religious groups, including those recognized and accepted, have a long history of including or excluding various texts or copies based on personal theological grounds. For example, the Bible we know today was mainly compiled in the 4th and 5th centuries. At that time, Christianity in Ethiopia was already beginning to diverge from Christianity in Europe and the Mediterranean, a difference that persists to this day. The Ethiopian Bible has many similarities with the Catholic and Orthodox versions, although it includes some extra books from the Old Testament. These additional books were probably written in the last centuries before Christ, at the end of the time of the Old Testament books, but before the beginning of the New Testament. Additionally, additional books were added at the end of the New Testament, especially related to Ethiopian church history and structure. Another reason for the rejection of the Ethiopian Bible may be the language in which it is written, Ge'ez, making it difficult for non-speakers to access. Furthermore, the lack of translations and the unique practices of the Ethiopian Bible contributed to its relative obscurity outside of Ethiopia. A more controversial reason is political. In the early days of Christianity, political power was a central concern for the Roman Empire. There was little spiritual growth, and any scrolls that did not align with the preferred history were left out. In fact, the Bishop of Rome instructed priests to destroy scrolls that were not in the Bible. However, many priests hid them in caves near the Dead Sea in the 1940s, explaining the differences between the two Bibles. In recent years, there has been an increase in interest in the Ethiopian Bible, with people seeking to discover what makes it special and the truth it contains. Churches have also been working to make it more accessible, translating it into more languages and conducting academic studies on it. It is impressive that this Bible has survived for so long, especially after attacks and fires, further increasing the mystery surrounding it. For you, who are interested in biblical curiosities and wisdom, and other books considered canonical by the Ethiopian Bible, we leave here one of our videos about the Book of Jubilees and its secrets. May God bless and see you soon.